What's going on, everybody? It's Smooth, and welcome back to another episode of the Hangtime Lounge. This is a show where I go off the script and talk to you all about the crazy stuff happening in the world of theme parks. Now, later in this episode, I'll be talking to you guys about this crazy announcement that came out of South Dakota, where allegedly they will be building a brand new theme park called Liberty Land. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the crazy announcements that came out of the IAAPA convention this year in Orlando. Now, I know I'm like a week late on talking about this, but in my defense, I spent like the last week editing like an hour-long video about Canada's Wonderland. I know not the greatest excuse in the world, but I mean, hey, it's Thanksgiving weekend. I had to balance, hanging out with family, editing this video. And for those of you wondering why my voice sounds a little bit different in this video in this podcast rather, compared to the last podcast, on top of me on top of me no longer recovering from a terrible flu, I actually also just bought a brand new microphone. You see, in the recording of the last video, my mic actually broke on me, which is why some of the video, it sounds really gainy, really muffled. And then there's a couple lines where I actually used this microphone to re-record some of the lines. But now that I have this new microphone, I hope I sound way better going forward with this channel. Before we get into IAAPA, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching all my videos so far, who's been showing support, liking, commenting, sharing my stuff. You guys are amazing. You guys make doing this totally worth it. I really appreciate all of you, and it's really fun. I didn't expect to get so much support right out of the gate. So again, thank you all so much for being you, I guess. All right, let's get into IAAPA. Again, I'm so late on this, but at the same time, I guess it's never too late to talk about something, especially when it's something as interesting as IAAPA. Every year we have this big convention in the world of theme parks. And for those of you who are listening to this and have no idea what IAAPA is this big convention that they do in Orlando every year where every big ride manufacturer comes out and they reveal their crazy new technologies, what they're bringing to the table. It's almost like a big sales show, you know what I mean? Now, IAAPA, I'm not going to talk about every single announcement in IAAPA because, to be quite frank with you, most of it was just oh, check out this new train for freaking Fire in the Hole. Here's our train for the Hot Wheels coaster in Arizona. I don't care. We're not going to talk about that here. I just want to talk to you guys about the really big announcements. And I don't think anything gets bigger than what Intamin announced here at IAAPA, which is the world's first EXA coaster. They're calling it Falcon's Flight. And what's kind of funny about this coaster is that it's sort of not really an announcement. I mean, we all knew Falcon's Flight was gonna happen. I mean, I'm sure most of the coaster community were kind of in doubt of this because, of course, it's being built in Saudi Arabia. There's no way they're gonna actually build this coaster, right? Look at that video. It is literally defying the laws of physics. But then I guess it took Intamin actually coming out and revealing the train for this coaster and showing their version of the video for people to actually believe that this is actually going to happen. Now, what's funny with the video they showed is that they don't even show any sort of propulsion system with the coaster. I mean, you see the part where, I'm going to assume it hits some LSM boosters and then launches itself up a cliff. It doesn't even show anything. It's just tracking and it flies up, the mountain, on its own. But because Intamin released the video, now it's real, right? It's really silly. And, the other funny thing is that people were in, total doubt of this coaster happening. And yet, we've seen, construction photos of this coaster for at least the past, 4 or 5 months now. I'm pretty sure before IAAPA happened, we've already seen photos of all the track pieces in place on top of the mountain before the big cliff dive that it does. And I'm also pretty sure that big 500-foot airtime hill was already built before like IAAPA happened. But for some reason, people decided to shut their brains off, and they're like, "Oh, Intamin announced it. This is actually gonna happen now, folks. This was always gonna happen. Like, let's be honest here. This is always gonna happen. This was always gonna be a thing." But anyways, it's really cool. I'm really excited to see this coaster. I'm almost tempted to drop the money to go to Saudi Arabia to ride it. I don't know what year it's gonna open, but I mean, the idea of going on a roller coaster that goes way past like 600 feet in the air is unbelievable. I mean, the fact that like the second highest part of the coaster, the big airtime hill of it, the fact that that part of it is taller than any coaster in the world. Like, what's the tallest coaster right now? King Ka? I think it's like, what, 450 feet, something like that. Like, the fact that, like, the second highest part of the coaster is taller than that just goes to show how much of a freaking mammoth of a roller coaster this is going to be. Like, it looks just absolutely insane. I mean, the ride starts, and it's kind of like an Intamin Blitz. I'm going to assume you launch up that first lift hill looking part. And then you go through a bunch of, like, little twists and dives and stuff. But it's once you launch up that mountain, and then you're kind of just perusing around up there, and they hang you off the cliff for a couple seconds to tease you. I mean, that is probably going to be like one of the most like heart-pounding moments on any roller coaster. It's going to be so surreal, and I can only wonder how it's going to feel like going down a 600-foot drop. I mean, me personally, the tallest roller coaster I've ever been on is Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. And I mean, even at 300 feet, that drop feels like it goes forever. I can say the same thing about a Yukon Striker in the same park. It's like, what, 245-foot drop? And again, it just feels like it keeps going. So imagine that, but like double the length. Like that is going to be the most surreal experience going down a drop like that. And then you follow that up with another drop, which is, again, taller than any freaking coaster in the world. It's the most unbelievable thing. It's hard for me to even imagine another coaster one-upping this, because you kind of have to have the advantage of having the coaster built next to a mountain to even achieve that, unless you want to drop, like, billions of dollars to build a coaster with, like, supports and it actually goes up that high. I mean, I can only imagine people in the Middle East doing this, honestly. Like, it's so mental. I love how also in the animation for the coaster, they went as far as to animate the F1 cars going right by the roller coaster. And I'm gonna divert really quickly to Formula One here. For those of you guys who don't know, there's actually a plan in place that once this whole Qiddiya entertainment complex opens, they're gonna move the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to this part of Saudi Arabia, and allegedly the track they're building for this is gonna be double the length of Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, which for those of you who don't know, that's the track where they do the Belgian Grand Prix every year. Longest track on the calendar. It goes like 4 miles. Apparently this is gonna go 8 miles, which, I mean, I don't know how that's gonna go. I mean, I personally like the tracks that are shorter. I think they always produce better racing. So doing an 8-mile track, I mean, that could get really boring really quick, in my opinion. But that being said, just the visual of these F1 cars racing right alongside the world's fastest and tallest roller coaster, I mean, unbelievable. Like, it's crazy to even think about. And I mean, just seeing a coaster that just dominates a park like that. I mean, looking at the video, it like literally goes over the entire theme park. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. It's the most insane coaster. Now, I do love the trains that they're building for this. They did a whole train reveal at IAAPA this year, and I think a lot of us, we've seen that video from El Toro Ryan where he goes over Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. It was a problematic roller coaster video he did. And I remember vividly in the video, he talks about the train design on the coaster. How, like, the front two rows, the seats are closer together, and then the seats in the back are further away from each other. And I find it really interesting that they're kind of reviving that concept for this coaster. Now, mind you, yeah, these trains they look way wider than what they used to use on the old Intamin mega coasters. But it's interesting how they brought that philosophy back for this ride. I guess they really wanted to go for, if you sit in the back row, you'll get a better view. I'm assuming that's what they're going for with this. It's a really interesting choice. I wonder if they're going to go through the same hurdles they did with Superman the Ride, where each row is going to have a totally different engineered, like, restraint system to accommodate for this, or if, like, it will be the same for each seat, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be using those newer gen, like, lap bars that you pull from over your head, kind of like what you got on, like, Velocicoaster or Pantheon or Skyrush, like, those super comfortable, well, I don't know about Skyrush, but, super comfortable, like, restraints you just pull over. I also love how every car has a windshield on it. Like, that's hilarious to me. Now, of course, it makes sense to do the windshield because coasters that go that fast, you can't be exposing your eyeballs to that. It'll damage you. Or if, like, a bird flies into your face, you're gonna die. So having the windshield on each car makes, like, perfect sense to do. And I think it adds a really cool aesthetic appearance to each train. Like, it makes it look totally unique and just totally different to anything out there. Now, the last thing I want to say about this roller coaster before we move on is that I find it really funny how we've just totally skipped 500 feet altogether. Like, it's almost like the guys over in Saudi Arabia and Intamin were like, 500? Screw that. Let's just go straight to 600. Like, you know what I mean? Screw you guys. It's amazing. It's so ballsy, and I love it. So I'm really excited to see what happens when this coaster opens. This is going to be just a complete game changer in the industry, and this is going to be something really special. Like, the announcement of this, I feel, kind of just overshadows everything else that happened in IAAPA, which is a shame because there are a lot of other really cool announcements too. Like, for example, in Six Flags Qiddiya, they also announced that they're going to be building one of the first, I think it is the first, GCI Titan track coaster. They're calling it Colossus. Now, this is kind of GCI's response to RMC's hybrid track. Wooden structure, but steel track, and it does flips and dips and skips and all this crap. Now, I was surprised that they chose to go with GCI for this coaster, because when they first announced Six Flags Qiddiya and they revealed all these coasters, we were all under the assumption that this Colossus roller coaster was going to be an RMC. And go figure, I mean, we're talking about Six Flags here. I mean, they're the company that brought RMC to us, and they've converted so many of their coasters in their lineup to be an RMC hybrid. So it's only fitting that they would have done an RMC hybrid in Six Flags Qiddiya. Sorry. But instead, they seem to be going with GCI, trying something totally different here. Now, I think there's the potential this could be a little more whippy than an RMC hybrid. And the reason I think this is because when you look at the trains, they're using like a new version of their Millennium Flyer trains. Just single rows on each car, and they can hit tighter turns because of that. So I can only wonder if they're going to try to make this whip around a lot more than an RMC. If it does, we are looking at something that could not only compete with the hybrid coaster, it could even surpass it in some regards. But I'm more interested to see the follow-up from this. After this coaster opens, will more parks embrace the idea of a GCI Titan track coaster? Will we see more wooden coasters get converted to this rather than an RMC? Are the price points similar? Like, is it as viable as going with someone like RMC? will it last as long as an RMC? Because the hybrid coasters, they do last really long. From what I know, like all of them are still really smooth. And I mean, we're not talking about their topper track or their wooden coasters. Those are a disaster. But when we're talking about the hybrid like iBox roller coasters, like those last like a really long time from the looks of it. So could GCI build a technology that's as good, if not better than that? It's something I can't wait to see. Now, I would talk some more about Six Flags Qiddiya, but from what I've seen, like the only two coasters they really talked about over there was Falcon's Flight and Colossus. So I'll save more of my thoughts about Six Flags Qiddiya for another time. Whether I talk about it here on the Hangtime Lounge or if I do a whole edit on the park or if I mention it in one of those videos. Well, I'll get into the rest of my thoughts about Six Flags Qiddiya some other time. But sticking in Saudi Arabia, we had a lot of announcements about Saudi Arabia at this convention. Sticking in Saudi Arabia, we now go to SNS. And they finally announced the world's first Axis coaster. Now, I'm sure all of us have been waiting forever for them to announce an Axis coaster. We were wondering, what park's it going to be built at? How big's it going to be? What's it going to do? So they finally announced it, and it's going to some like Transformers theme park. I don't have the notes in front of me right now, but they're building it in some Transformers theme park, and this is going to be a Transformers themed Axis coaster. It's going to be built indoors, and it's going to do a couple flips and stuff. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all here. I was actually kind of disappointed when I saw the layout of this. No, when I first heard of the Axis coaster, I was like, oh, this is going to be a full layout where, I mean, at least like 3 times longer than what they showed us here. When you look at the layout of what they're going to be building here, this kind of looks like the prototype that they built in Utah, but maybe like double the length. And then they're like, oh, you're going to go around twice. You get to experience double the fun and double the terror. It's like, really, man? You're going to build this tiny-ass layout and then just have the coaster go around it twice to give it arbitrary length? It's kind of a letdown in a sense. I was really hoping that the first Axis coaster, they would do a lot more with it than this. But at the same time, if this is more like a proof of concept than anything, then I guess it's kind of acceptable for the first Axis coaster to be like this. I mean, I could only hope that with the Axis coasters we get in the future, they do more bold stuff with the layouts, something more full and fleshed out, and something that actually goes all over the place. Because, I mean, this is like the Chuck E. Cheese sized version of an Axis coaster in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, they could have done more with it. But whatever, you know what? It's being built indoors. I guess, even though it's Saudi Arabia and they have all the money to do it, I guess they wanted to save space and money. So that's probably why they did this. But I'm sure the coaster in itself is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be totally unique, obviously. I mean, we've never seen a coaster like this before. And again, I can only hope that the construction and the fruition of this coaster means we get to see more of these in the future. Especially because when it finally comes to America, I think they'll probably do it on a way bigger scale than this. So let's see what happens. Let's see who pulls the trigger next and goes for an Axis coaster. Now, another roller coaster, I guess it's more of like a coaster slide hybrid, if you will. Well, actually, I won't say that because that's coming in a little bit. But up next, I want to talk about the Maurer Spike Water Fight. So Maurer Sone, if you don't know who they are, they're a coaster company. They've built spinning coasters. They have this thing called the X-Car coaster. You've probably seen it if you live in Alabama. They have like a coaster called the Sky Loop, or well, the model's called the Sky Loop. I think the coaster's called X Coaster or something like that. No, it pulls you up, hangs you upside down, and then you do a twist in the air and you fall down. Their most famous coaster. I mean, this is controversial, of course. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. That's their most famous coaster. I know a lot of people dump on that coaster, but I like it personally. I thought it was really smooth when I rode it in March of this year. So, I mean, I guess I never experienced it like when it was rough, but I like that coaster. But I'm getting off track here. Maurer recently started building this thing called the Spike Coaster, which is kind of like their version of a motorbike coaster. Essentially, you and a partner, you sit in a car, you have like a little gas pedal thing, and you can control the speed of it as you're going along. I think the most famous example of this, they built one of these coasters on a Carnival cruise ship, actually. And it's kind of like the world's first roller coaster out at sea. I really want to go on that. It looks really cool. So they basically took this technology and they decided to combine it with a slide complex. So now you got the Spike water fight. So now the car you're in, it has like water guns, I guess, so you can shoot at people while they're climbing up the tower or looking at you, and it twists up and down this tower while there's water slides wrapping around you. I love this. I love it so much. It looks so cool. I really like it when manufacturers take roller coasters and they incorporate them into water parks like that. I think a great example of this, Vekoma, they recently took their, what was it, their junior inverted coaster, their family inverted coaster, and they added like spray cannons to it. This was built over in Abu Dhabi and Yas Island. I think it's called Bandit Bomber. That's really cool, like a proper roller coaster, but the whole point of it is it's trying to get you wet. And I know back in the day they used to do the Super Soaker coasters. They had one in Hersheypark. They had one in Hard Rock Park. I think it was Carowinds, if I'm correct. They had one too. In fact, I think the one in Carowinds is the one that got sent to Hard Rock Park. I could be totally off on that, but you know, like the idea of like taking roller coasters and putting them in water parks is a really cool idea. And I think the way that Maurer went about doing it, not only does it save a lot of space, but visually it looks stunning. And it's something that I really hope that water parks kind of grasp onto and start doing. Now, had this announcement happened prior to me doing the Making Canada's Wonderland Better video, I probably would have slapped one of those in the park. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of jealous after I had recorded the voiceover and started editing. And then IAAPA happened and I saw that. And I was like, wow, I missed out on that. But it is what it is. But whatever the next park I end up covering, if it has a water park incorporated into the theme park, you know I'm slapping one of those in there because it is a fantastic idea, and I hope that parks really latch onto that. It's really cool stuff from Maurer. I'm glad they announced that. Hey, y'all remember the SkySpire from like a couple years ago? That's back apparently. They're still trying to sell those. Now, if I'm correct, they also, I forgot the name of the company that even designed the SkySpire, but I think they also designed the Polar Coaster, if I'm correct, and no one ever bought that for some reason. I don't know if the SkySpire will ever be bought. It looks amazing. I think if you have a major metropolitan area and you had this awesome looking Space Needle looking tower with these like cable cars that ride on a roller coaster track up to the top, like who wouldn't pay money to go on that? Like it looks freaking amazing. I can literally imagine them building one here in Miami. I mean, I live a little north of Miami, but I'm close enough to Miami to say in Miami. You know, like that would fit in a town like that perfectly because other than that, they don't really got much like visually going on there. And I remember I'm from Toronto, so when I look at the skyscrapers in Miami, I think it's a joke. But that's neither here or there. I would hope that this gets sold at some point. I'm glad they're still trying to sell it to people, but it's a shame that like we've not seen one be built at this point. Well, let's see what happens in the future. What do we got next? Okay, so I briefly mentioned this earlier. Now we're gonna really go into it. Polin Waterparks. I think I wrote down that manufacturer name right. They revealed this ridiculous concept for a ride, and I don't even know if this is gonna actually happen. This is called the Zip and Slide. So imagine a water slide, and then out of nowhere it becomes a zip line. I know this sounds ridiculous, right? So they show this video off, and it shows these two guys in a raft, and they're riding down a slide, and there's this big pole sticking out of the top of the raft. And then you get to a point where it connects to like a zip line, and all of a sudden you're zip lining. And I'm like, when I saw this, I'm like, that looks so dangerous. Like, that looks like the kind of ride concept that could break so easily, and people could plunge to their deaths on this thing. I don't know what... I don't know the safety of this. It looks absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if a park would ever buy it, honestly. I mean, it looks cool. It's very fascinating to see. But I don't know about this one. Apparently, this is a real thing. It's on the market now. If a water park wants to go for it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It looks like a death trap to me, but whatever. All is well, I guess. Next up, Premier Rides. Now, these guys kind of came out of nowhere for me. So, to explain this, let's go to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Now, as we all know, they are refurbishing the Loch Ness Monster. Classic roller coaster. Features the only interlocking loops in the world. And they announced that the whole coaster is going to get retracked, and they're going to add a bunch of effects to it and stuff. Now, I think it was safe for us to all assume it would have been Vekoma doing this refurbishment because they actually have the patents to Arrow's track design, and for the longest time before they started doing their new track design, they were mimicking Arrow's track design like forever. And not to mention they also have things like the Mark 1212 trains, which were designed to like go onto this style of track and be super comfortable. But to our surprise, it's actually Premier Rides that's going to be doing this refurbishment, which is really bizarre to me. Now, if you look online, there is construction photos already. The Premier track is already being installed onto the ride, and it perfectly mimics Arrow's track design. It's which is surprising to even see. I don't even know why they do that. I don't know how Premier even pitched this to the SeaWorld company in the first place. It's so bizarre that it's them doing this. My question, because they didn't go into a lot of detail when they were talking about this at IAAPA, my question is, how fundamentally different is the trains going to be? Are they going to completely just mimic the Arrow trains, or are they going to do something a little different? Because what I was expecting is that the trains are going to look like they're skyrocket trains. You look at, like, for example, let's go to Las Vegas, the New York hotel. They have the Big Apple coaster, or whatever they call it now. They recently took out those Togo trains and put in their skyrocket trains on the coaster. And if I'm correct, it's actually made the coaster a lot better, a lot more bearable at the very least. So my assumption was that these skyrocket style trains were going to be incorporated into Loch Ness Monster. No lap bar only and super smooth and all that. But judging off the concept art that they revealed at IAAPA, it looks like they're going to be mimicking the old Arrow trains. So again, it's really weird. I don't know what inspired Premier to be like, oh, let's refurb Arrow coasters and mimic them. I'm really fascinated to see where this project goes. I'm sure it's going to be great. I mean, if there's one thing I know for sure, it's going to be a much smoother experience. It's going to be a lot better of a coaster. Not to say Loch Ness Monster was a bad coaster. That's not what I'm saying at all. But this will definitely be a step up to what the original Loch Ness Monster was. So I'm fascinated to see where they go with this. Maybe after this happens, maybe we'll start seeing a trend in the theme park world where these old Arrow coasters that like are on their last breaths, Premier can come in and fix them up and make them good again. I mean, I'm thinking of coasters like Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Very iconic coaster, but the thing tries to chop your head off every chance it gets. If this Premier refurb is good, imagine if they went to Six Flags next and they're like, hey, let's refurb Viper. Let's make that a better coaster. All of a sudden, Viper can stick around for another 20 years, like, viably. So it's interesting to see like what they're doing here. Let's see where this goes. I got 2 more points here for IAAPA. Let's start off with Sally Rides. They are building a SpongeBob dark ride in the Adventure Dome in Las Vegas. I think it's called SpongeBob's Crazy Carnival Ride. Now, what I find hilarious about this is that it's literally a total ripoff of Toy Story Midway Mania at Disney World and Disneyland in Anaheim, and it's so similar to the point where instead of doing the Mr. Potato Head animatronic at the front, they're doing a Mr. Krabs animatronic. Like they're literally copying it like verbatim. But the funny thing with the animatronic is that the mouth barely moves. So it's like you hear him doing all this dialogue, but his mouth's just like ar 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 ar. Like it barely moves. It's almost creepy to an extent, but I love how it looks. Like from afar, it looks amazing. Now, if they were like Disney level and they had the mouth movements on point, this would be like an amazing animatronic. But I love the ambition of it. Looking at the ride itself, again, it's literally Toy Story Midway Mania. You get in a car, you got a gun, you go from a game booth to a game booth, and it's like you're doing the games on the boardwalk. But instead of the Toy Story characters, it's the SpongeBob characters. Now, mind you, I am a massive sucker for SpongeBob. I grew up on that stuff. And I'm sure if you watched my videos, you know, like I have that SpongeBob meme I use in like almost every single video. I'm not talking about this one right here.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, so I'm a big SpongeBob guy. So obviously I'm a sucker for a dark ride like this. I would love to go on it. It sounds like it would be really funny. I hope that like if they're gonna do this, that they really focus on the humor and the stupid comedy that makes SpongeBob what it is. Because if you don't incorporate that in the ride, now it's just a generic shooting ride with SpongeBob characters in it. And that's not what we want, you know? If you're going to put an IP in a ride, you got to really, you got to bring the spirit of that IP into it, or else it comes off super hollow and stupid. I mean, look at some of the stuff Disney's been doing lately with their IPs, like Avengers Assemble Flight Force at Walt Disney Studios. Like, that's just garbage. Like, that's literally just, let's throw Iron Man and Captain Marvel in this ride, but it has none of the spirit of Marvel, and then you launch off into a pitch black box for 2 minutes. Like, nobody wants that. Well, let's see what the Adventure Dome does with with SpongeBob here. I'm surprised they even have like access to that. Well, maybe I shouldn't be surprised because SpongeBob shows up in like freaking every single theme park at this point. So maybe it's not too much of a surprise, but cool to see they're going this far with the IP. I can't wait to see how that one turns out. Now, finally here, I got Triotech. Now, Triotech, famous simulator company from Montreal and Quebec. They've been, I don't want to say revolutionizing, but they've been really bringing more of the simulator flavor to parks that are not Disney or Universal Studios. And they've helped in creating some amazing rides. They did the visual aspects for Wonder Mountain's Guardian and Canada's Wonderland and Primordial and Lagoon. They were behind things like Knott's Berry Tales in Knott's Berry Farm. What else have they done? They've done a lot of like simulator rides. I'm sure if you've gone to your general entertainment complex, you've seen one of their simulators just sitting there to ride on. Now, I bring them up because they went and announced this new simulator called the Superfly, which they're touting as a stand-up simulator ride, and you just stand there and you watch a film, I guess. I don't know. They didn't do a really good job of explaining what it was. They're just like, it's a stand-up simulator, get on it. Now, I wanted to bring it up because I looked on their website, and it turns out they already sell a stand-up simulator ride called the Stand-Up Theater. And when you look at the ride vehicles, they look exactly like what they're promoting in the Superfly. So it makes me wonder, are they just taking something they already have and just repackaging it and trying to sell it as a new thing? Or is this going to be significantly different to this stand-up theater that they already sell? They're saying this is the world's first. I read in the press release that apparently this is going to incorporate a flying theater kind of setup. I don't know what that means because, I mean, really, sometimes you have these parks and they'll be like, it's a flying theater, and it's just your regular old simulator. So I don't know if they're just throwing words in there to make it sound like it's bigger than what it actually is, or if we're actually looking at something totally different and potentially revolutionary. Now, the first installation of this is going to be in some entertainment complex in Oshawa in Canada. And if you know Oshawa, I mean, it ain't a big city. I mean, back when I was living in Toronto, we used to call that place the Dirty Schwa. Very, very ghetto, and a lot of crime happens there. And we're now going to see the world's first Superfly be built there. So, Lord knows what this is going to be. If I end up being proven right and they're just reskinning something they're already selling, well, we're going to have some harsh opinions on Triotech, aren't we? But let's see. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that this is actually some new technology here and not just them repackaging and reskinning stuff. Okay, so that's everything I have here on IAAPA. Let's go ahead now and take a 1-minute break here, and when I come back, we're going to talk about this supposed brand new theme park in South Dakota called Libertyland. We'll be back in a minute, everybody. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So up next on the Hangtime Lounge, I want to talk to you guys about this crazy announcement that we got during the IAAPA weekend, where allegedly they will be building a brand new theme park in South Dakota called Libertyland. Now, this park is going to be built pretty close to South Dakota's biggest tourist attraction, being Mount Rushmore. And judging by this one photo we have of the park so far, it looks like this is going to be a sort of like independent, like a sort of like different take on an old theme park concept we got back in the day called Disney's America. Now, I don't know if y'all know, or y'all remember about this, I should say. I don't know if y'all remember Disney's America. This was a theme park that was proposed during the Michael Eisner era of Disney, where they were going to build this theme park in Virginia on the grounds of Gettysburg, and it was going to be a theme park that pays tribute to the history of America, like takes you on a tour from its humble beginnings all the way up to like the industrial era of America. And it looks like this theme park is going to do exactly the same thing that Disney America was going to do. Like verbatim, like each land looks almost identical. We got like this sort of like Carnival pier looking area, I should say. My bad. You got this sort of like Aboriginal Native American looking area with a raft ride. You got an air base. It looks really similar. I guess on a slightly smaller scale, I should say. I personally first found out about this whole thing through Theme Park Predictions. Who doesn't watch Theme Park Predictions? Everyone loves Brandon. He does great stuff over there. And I think what he said about this park, I feel the same way about it. It almost looks like Disney's California Adventure. but like mixed in with a couple elements here and there of like Islands of Adventure, Universal. But also, it looks like it's totally mimicking Disney's America. Now, before we dive into this park and what it looks like it has, I want to talk about the whole precedence of them even doing this park and my feelings on if a park like this could even succeed or not. You see, here's my thing with this, okay? So, right now they're building this park in a very untapped market of America, that being South Dakota. And I'm not fully convinced that something like this could succeed in an area like this. And if we go off of history of, rich people building highly themed theme parks in areas that don't have theme parks, they have a tendency to fail. Let's look at our most recent example here. And I don't want to call this park a failure necessarily yet, but unfortunately, the first year of its existence hasn't been that good. Sorry, I got something in my throat. This park being Lost Island in Iowa. Now, greatly themed park. I love how it looks. It has a cool direction going with it, being this whole Polynesian thing and whatnot. But the park unfortunately suffers from two issues. Issue number one being that, it feels like they threw all of the money at the theming and not enough of the money at the rides. I mean, outside of like that dark ride in the volcano, I think it's called like Krakatoa, or I don't know what it's called. I don't know much about the park, to be honest with you. But what I do know about it is that like outside of that one dark ride, which felt like something totally unique to the park, every other roller coaster, literally every roller coaster, I should say, and I'm sure every flat ride as well, they're all literally hand-me-downs. I mean, their big e-ticket roller coaster is literally just Kanonen from Leesburg, and they just shipped it over here. And then they shipped over some, like, crappy Vekoma SLC, and that's, like, their other big coaster. So, I mean, I guess the mistake with that park is that they didn't focus enough on building rides that make people want to go there. And because of that, it does not attract people to want to visit the park at all. If anything, people are only going there because they're going to Adventureland, which has some great coasters like Monster and like, I think that's where they have Dragon Slayer too, that really crazy 40 free spin. And it's like people are just tacking Lost Island on as like a side thing to do. You know what I mean? And like at least like there, even though like it's not the greatest market to build a theme park in, at least you kind of have at least you have Adventureland there to kind of help add attendance to the park. But if it wasn't there, I mean, that park would be on the level of Hard Rock Park. It's like built in an area where no one goes for theme parks, and it ends up just totally tanking. I mean, it's tanking right now. From what I've heard, it seems like the attendance is really low, and because of that, the park's pretty much operating at a loss right now. It's really sad to see with like a new park like that. And not to mention that park, as well as this park and another park, which I'll be talking about in a little bit, all of these parks are being built in like light of a upcoming recession in America. I mean, look at how unbelievable inflation's gotten in the last like couple years. Like, it's made it so it's like hard to even afford to eat food anymore, to pay for rent, car insurance, all this crap, And let's look at history. Let's look back at Hard Rock Park. It's a very similar situation, amazing theme park, incredibly themed, awesome ride selection, but it was built in an area that is not a proven market in light of a recession. And what happened to that theme park? Closed after a year. They sold it off to some company, they made it garbage, and then now it's literally just an empty plot of land. And I really fear that in the cases of like Lost Island or this park, Liberty Land, that we might see a very similar thing happen here. I mean, again, history speaks. And looking at history and seeing what happens with parks that are built in untapped markets in times like this, it spells disaster for something like this. But I mean, obviously, I wish that every park succeeds and that they stay open forever and they continue to expand and become better and better. So let's see what happens here. Now, I purposely left out one theme park, and this is, I believe it's opening in 2025 or 2026. I forgot, but it's a park in Oklahoma called American Heartland. Allegedly, this is being built by a guy who owned a Pizza Hut franchise and got so rich that he could afford to build this thing. I kept this out of the conversation because the park itself looks phenomenal. It looks like it could be one of the best parks in America. Like, it could compete with, like, Silver Dollar City or Dollywood. Like, it's literally on that level. And looking at some of the rides that they're putting in this park, you know, you got things like this Haunted Lighthouse Dark Ride, which is probably the thing I'm most excited about this park. Now, I don't know how many of you as a kid saw the Haunted Lighthouse 3D show that they did at, like, Busch Gardens and, like, a couple other parks. But that was really cool to me. And to do that as a dark ride, I think is insane. And then you also got things like looks like an awesome looking GCI wooden coaster. You got an Intamin Blitz that blasts by buildings and around a drop tower. It's a really cool looking theme park. And I really want that to succeed. Now, yes, it's being built in Oklahoma, which, again, untapped market, being built in light of a recession, and judging by the opening time, it looks like they're trying to compete with Epic Universe, which is really stupid in my opinion, because you can't compete with Epic Universe. I mean, Epic Universe, when that opens, everyone's attention is going to be on that park. Whatever any other park does is almost irrelevant in a sense. So to try to build a brand new theme park when Epic Universe is opening, in a recession, mind you, so not a lot of people are going to have money to go to multiple places. They're going to have to pick one or the other. Not a great move. But at least with that park, it looks like they have the ride selection to kind of survive. At least better than Lost Island, because Lost Island does not have the ride selection. It has the theming, but they forgot that, you know, rides are the meat of a theme park. You know, I mean, theming is like the garnish. Theming is the sauce. You know, I mean, it's not. No one goes to a park just because it's well-themed, you know what I mean? They go there because the rides are awesome, and having the awesome theming is what takes that park and makes it the best of the best. So, I mean, seeing this Liberty Land being built in South Dakota, and the theme of it is America, it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if this will survive, if it even gets built at all. We'll see what happens. I mean, they announced it. Apparently, this is a go. Let's see what happens with this. Let's go into the ride selection now with this, which is going to be kind of difficult because, again, we don't really know what's in the park. All we really have is this aerial photo of it. But judging by the park, it looks like it's going to have a couple coasters, a couple water rides, a couple flat rides. It looks like you got buildings for like a simulator and a dark ride. Let's go around the park, and you're probably gonna pick up on it right away that this park is gonna be so similar to like California's Great America, or California's Great America. What am I saying? Disney's California Adventure. It's gonna look a lot like that park in a lot of sense. But again, I get Disney America vibes off this because the areas are just so similar. It's hilarious. It looks like the only thing they took out was like that one area where they reenact the Civil War. Like that got taken out of it. Because, you know, classic like modern, because you know how it is these days, you know, like erase history, don't talk about wars that happen, you know, you don't want to offend the children. So we're just going to gloss over that part. But whatever. Anyways, it looks like you go in and it's like this very sort of, I don't want to say Victorian, because when I say Victorian, I'm talking about Canada. Or kind of like old school Boston. You got like some ships in the middle of a lake. I could only hope that they reenact the Boston Tea Party every day, because that would be really funny. Like they throw tea, and then they throw that dickhead Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins over the ship. Sorry, I hate him. I'm a Panthers fan, by the way. I hate that guy. So they throw him into the water. It looks like it's just going to be a Main Street area. You just shop and you eat. It doesn't look like there's much going on there. And judging by the photo, there's not really much space to do anything other than like a show on like the body of water there. So again, Boston Tea Party, the experience. I'm assuming that's what's going to be there. Let's hit a right here. It looks like there's like a hotel. And that's cool that they have like an on-site hotel with the theme park. I guess like the idea with this is that they want people to stay at this hotel. You know, you can go see Mount Rushmore and then go to this theme park in the middle of South Dakota. That's cool. I'm sure it'll be a nice hotel. I guess. I can imagine they'll probably do something on the level of like, well, maybe not on the level, but pretty close to like what they're doing with Epic Universe, how they have that big hotel in the middle of the theme park. It'll probably be something like that. It seems like it leads into this sort of Native American area. I can see there's like a bonfire and like a couple other things. Judging by how big this park is, and I'm assuming the budget isn't like American Heartland level budget because that park has an insane budget. And judging by the rides going in there, like you could tell they had a lot of money to play around with compared to this. It looks like they're gonna have like probably some like shows, and when I say shows, I mean kind of like when you go to like Harry Potter, like the Wizarding World, and like they have like the different schools from the Triwizard Tournament, and they're like doing like they're dancing in front of you on a little stage. You know, like I'm imagining it's gonna be a lot of shows like that. There is this little like dark area between the hotel and the water ride there. I don't know if they're gonna try to fit in like a dark ride or something. I don't think they are because, frankly, it looks really tiny. They're probably just gonna put a restaurant there. Let's be honest here. It looks like it's gonna have one anchor attraction, and it looks like this River Rapids ride. Now, if I was a betting man, I would say that this River Rapids ride is going to be the Lewis and Clark River Expedition. Like, literally the same freaking River Rapids ride from Disney's America. Like, it's almost too fitting, considering where this is being placed in the park. And why wouldn't they, right? I mean, America, here's the history. Lewis and Clark, baby. I don't even know what they did. I grew up in Canada, so I don't even know who Lewis and Clark is. I took Canadian history. I guess they're two dudes, and they rode down a river, and therefore they are American heroes. So there you go, baby. Up next, it looks like you cross a bridge, and it looks like we're in the Industrial Revolution. I'm assuming that's what that is. There's a big building there. I'm going to guess that's a dark ride of some sort. I mean, I doubt it's going to be a roller. If it is a roller coaster, I can imagine that being like Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City. You know what I mean? Nothing insane. But I think more than likely that's going to be a dark ride of some sort. You're probably going to go through like a steel mill, and then they're going to pour like flaming hot steel on you, and that's it. I really don't know what this is. There also seems to be some massive water feature to the left of that, or I don't know if that's a water. What is that? It looks like a giant rock wall. What is that supposed to be? I mean, when I first looked at this photo, I mean, it looked like a log flume, but looking at it now, it looks like I really don't know what that is. I'm gonna assume that's a log flume. I have no idea what they're going for with that big gray blob there on the side. Maybe it's a roller coaster. Watch, it's gonna be a Premier Skyrocket too, and they just enclosed it in like a rock formation. And then you go through, it's just pitch dark the whole time. You just hear the sound of eagles blasting in your ears while you're twisting upside down in the dark. I have no idea what that is. It's so weird. There's that. I guess this is the Industrial Revolution. I'm assuming that's what this whole area is trying to go for. They have a nice little plaza in the middle there. That's cool. Let's cross the bridge. Now, before we talk about this carnival-looking area over here, I noticed there's a pathway, and it looks like if you hit a right and go down it, there's a baseball field. I don't know what this field's for. I guess you can watch baseball. I've never heard of a theme park where sports is one of the entertainment options at the park, but it looks like they did baseball. Now, if I was doing an America theme park, I would have done football. Because one, football is way more entertaining than baseball. Number two, football is the most popular sport in America. But I guess since baseball is a quote-unquote national treasure, that's what they're going for here. But I bet you like $1 million, if they were to do this, they'll probably have like one MLB game at like the beginning of the park's life. And then from then on out, it's just freaking like minor leagues. Now, what I would hope they do is they do like, think of it like WWE, like sports entertainment. It's like they do a baseball game, but it's fixed. And then you just have a bunch of shenanigans happen during the game. And it becomes like a really entertaining, funny show. If they did that, now that would be really creative. That would be unique. Like, I don't think anyone's ever seen a theme park do that, where you have like a sport, but it's fake. They're faking it, and then they just do a bunch of dumb shit like the whole game. That would be fun. I hope they do that. I hope that's the direction with that baseball field over there. It then goes into this carnival area. I'm not sure why. I guess because Americans like theme parks. I don't know what the goal of this is. So they have a Ferris wheel. But they animated the Ferris wheel so that it doesn't do like what Mickey's Fun Wheel does at California Adventure. Like, it just looks like a standard Ferris wheel. Which, okay, cool. And then you have this big roller coaster behind it. Now, I am almost tempted to say that that's an RMC hybrid, but honestly, I have no idea what that is. I hope it's an RMC, because if it is, that'll give us reason to go there, I guess. But I mean, at the same time, if they would for a wooden coaster, I mean, that would fit really well. I guess whip out Gravity Group or GCI and be like, yo, build us a wooden coaster that feels like an old coaster. It's not like we already have like 60 billion of those in the country already. I think it would be really like bold if they went with Intamin. It's like, yo, we want an Intamin prefab. We want El Toro. Could you imagine we just have El Toro in this park? Man, that'll get me to go. That'll be something. But I doubt they're going to do that. I mean, we all know how much of a mess those prefab wooden coasters are. Like, there's a reason they don't build them anymore. El Toro is the perfect example of why. Looking deeper, there's a carousel. It looks like a carousel. I'm gonna guess it's a carousel next to the entrance to the coaster. They also have a hot air balloon. Although I highly doubt that's gonna be a ride. I'm sure that's just gonna be a balloon that stands there and does nothing all day. There's this big tent with the stars on it. My head's thinking restaurant. Maybe it's a circus tent. I don't know what that is. And then it leads into this big plaza that looks over the lake. And I'm assuming this is just going to be like a beer garden kind of thing. Like, you just go, there's food and there's live acts, and it's just really chill and relaxing, which I like that. You know, I mean, I know I talk a lot about rides and stuff on this channel, but I do love scenery and just relaxation. Yep. Sorry about that. I do like relaxation and all of that. You know, like, I'm the kind of guy where when I go to a theme park, usually halfway through the day, I got to go find like a quiet, calm space to kind of just unplug for a second. That's kind of just how I am. Like, when I go to Islands of Adventure, I'm the kind of guy where, like, I'll go find one of those hidden paths and just walk around there for like an hour just to unwind. It makes the day a lot easier for me. So having a big, cool, relaxing middle zone like that looks really nice. Yeah, that's nice. I didn't expect I'd be talking about that so much. I just noticed there's another circus tent before going into like the next area. So maybe I'm right. Maybe one is like a circus show and then the other is a restaurant. Or maybe they put like a teacup ride in one of them. I have no idea. But then it goes into this last area, which looks like a hangar straight. Which, again, and mind you that every land I've talked about so far is in the plans of Disney America, which is why I keep bringing it back up. It's like verbatim the same freaking thing, but just condensed. They have this hangar straight. I'm going to assume one of those buildings there is for a Soarin' style ride. because of course it is. Why wouldn't you have a soaring ride where you fly like an eagle and you see the Mount Rushmore and Statue of Liberty and all that? But I'm assuming that some of this building is going to be used for what looks like a roller coaster. If you look really closely at the body of water there, you can see there's this black track that flies under the bridge and around this parachute-looking ride. I guess they're going for Velocicoaster in this park, which is really cool. Would be interesting if it started with like an indoor section and it shoots out of the hangar and you fly over the water, and then they play a freaking Danger Zone in the background. It's just Top Gun. That would be really cool. Parachute ride. Oh, you gotta love the parachute ride. I don't know if that will last long because every theme park that's had a parachute ride has closed it, except for like Disney World. So I mean, cool. I hope that lasts. And then it has a little area along the lake, I guess, where you can get food and hang out. And that's pretty much the whole park. It's a really small park. There isn't really much to it other than that. Again, this is not on like the scale of American Heartland. Like that park looks like it's double the size of this. But in all fairness, I guess with this park not being the biggest theme park in the world, I mean, I guess they kind of know what they're getting themselves into with this. You know, like South Dakota, it's not the biggest like tourist place in the world. Because again, outside of Mount Rushmore, what do you go there for? Like nothing. They don't have sports. They don't have anything. They have Mount Rushmore. That's pretty much it. And it looks like they're not going to have this theme park. Again, I would hope it succeeds because it's decent. It's definitely a half-day park, but in all fairness to them, it looks like it will be really nicely themed. And whatever rides they do choose to put into it, it looks like it will be worth our time. At least it will be better than Lost Island, where it's like, instead of putting a bunch of copy-paste bullshit, they're actually designing rides for this park. And I'll give them credit on that. That's great, because I think people would respect that a lot more than, hey, come to our really cool looking park, but our only coasters is a hand-me-down launch coaster and a fucking SLC. Like this looks a lot better. I hope this works. If it's worth people's times, then absolutely, like I can see like people going to this. I might even go to this, honestly. But time will tell. Anyways, that's Liberty Land, ladies and gentlemen. Unprecedented times, my friends. You know, we got 3 parks that looks like they're going to be opening up in the next couple of years. We got Universal's Epic Universe. We got the American Heartland in Oklahoma. And now we got Liberty Land in South Dakota. So I'm excited to see what happens in the world of theme parks, even in light of this whole recession. Let's see where things go, my friends. Let's see where things go. So anyways, it looks like we're at the end of the episode now. So once again, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching all my content, who's been liking, sharing, commenting. You guys are amazing, and without y'all, this channel wouldn't be possible. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you all so much for being here. Now, before I end this episode, I do want to mention really quickly that in the end of my last episode, I mentioned that my next making theme park better video, I'm going to be doing a fan request. So if you haven't already, check out that video, and in the comments, leave your suggestion for what theme park you want to see me make better next. In a couple weeks, I'll be going through the comment section of that video and the video before that, making SeaWorld better. And whichever suggestion I like, or whichever one gets picked the most, will be the topic of the next video. But until that happens, I want to thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, my name is Smooth, and I wish you all nothing but smooth travels. Take it easy, everybody.